we need to stop thinking of productivity as like growth, action, using our time, and seeing it more as like, what result am I giving you? What value am I giving you that's helping you, regardless of how it came about? Being a mom has clarified so much what I actually want to be doing and achieving. Whereas before I was like, I can do it all. I have all the time in the world. I'll do 10 different things. The minute I did that 30-day experiment, that's when this all came about. And it just became super clear. And I was like, wow, it's because...
Hey there, I'm Sagar Soni. If you are a chronic overthinker, a wannabe productivity expert, and is having a hard time understanding how to squeeze productivity out of every waking minute, but also learn how to take a chill pill, then you are in the right place. Let's learn from successful people, YouTubers, book authors, podcasters, and every other stranger that I can get my hands on. Well, figuratively, let's learn how they balance their life. Welcome to Beyond the Speech. Francesca Phillips, thank you very much for joining me on my podcast, Beyond the Speech. It's an honor.
Thank you for having me.
You have a good following going on Substack newsletter. It's called The Good Space. What is The Good Space about? Can you share that?
Yeah, so initially I started The Good Space for busy professionals who wanted to have something spiritual, something uplifting in their day. They didn't have time to read all the books, watch all the videos, and I was doing that anyway. And so I started it to give little tidbits and little bite-sized pieces of self-development for people who just needed a positive way to start their morning. And now I'm focusing more on helping ambitious women to essentially win in their business and their life. My goal is to help women have more money so that they can make more decisions in the world. And so I've been pivoting to talk more about like things like productivity, business, all from a lens of well-being and mental health and nervous system regulation.
Those are some amazing topics that you're covering. That's nice. When did you start this newsletter?
I started The Good Space when I was living in Zurich, Switzerland. So my husband got a job. We were in Los Angeles at the time. I was working in the music industry. I had just left because it was a really toxic environment, as anyone who's worked in entertainment or near it can attest to. Mm-hmm. And I had just left, and about 6 months later, he got a job and they said, can you move to Zurich, Switzerland? So we did. And it was during that time, I didn't want to lose any skills or proof of working, because at the time, everything was so resume driven. And I thought, well, we're only supposed to stay here for 3 months. So I should just show that I'm making something, producing something. And it ended up turning into 3 years in Zurich, which was really funny. Wow. And so over that period of time, honestly, I felt very lonely. Switzerland is a very small country, but just in and of itself, being in a different place where you don't know people, you don't know the language, you don't have your base and foundation that you're used to in your regular life, I created The Good Space essentially to connect with people. I really wanted the things that I was reading from Wayne Dyer, Abraham Hicks. I was reading all the self-development books that were coming out at that time. And my mind was just being blown constantly, but I didn't really have anyone to share it with. And so I thought, well, I'm sure there's other people that want to learn the things that I'm also learning, and they would geek out over it with me. And so I started, it was first on Instagram, and then it evolved into a weekly newsletter. And then it just went from there.
Oh, I see. Okay. So were you always into self-development books before this, or did you start this once you moved and that's when you started this outlet of what you were learning? Or were you always into books before that too?
I was always into reading, always into books. I had groups of friends in Los Angeles when I was in the music industry. We would do masterminds just for fun. Before it was trendy, before it was a thing, we would read books like, it was the one by Jack Canfield about the success principles or something like that. And it had a guide for a mastermind group. And so my friends and I thought, let's do a mastermind together. So no, I was absolutely unequivocally into those books. And I think it's because I had heard so many adults say, oh, when I hit a certain age, I just stopped reading and I don't have time for it anymore. And I love reading so much. And I remember thinking, I don't want that to be me. I always want to be learning. I always want to be growing. I want to develop and better myself. And so it just really became part of a core value and mission of mine to
Right.
continue that path.
I see. Thanks for sharing that. Where does Gary Vaynerchuk fit into all of this? I think you were working in his circle at once.
Yeah, not like in his inner circle, but okay. In Switzerland, as I started the Good Space, I also started a copywriting business. So that's where the seeds of it were planted. I got some of my client base built up from there. And then when we moved from Switzerland back to Los Angeles, my husband's law firm asked him to move to New York City. And so we moved to New York City, and then that's where I worked with brands in a copywriting capacity for VaynerMedia, Olay, L'Oreal, and some other tech startups.
I
And the
see.
cool thing is that even though I was just working on one of their accounts for the agency, so they had a bunch of different big brands paying them like millions a month to run their social, to run their ads. And so I was part of a team that ran ads and email marketing for Olay. And the cool thing is that Gary, no matter who you are in the company, you are allowed to schedule a 15-minute one-on-one with him because he wants to meet every employee that's hired, and he wants to make sure that he's accessible and not just hidden away like most CEOs. And so I
Right.
did get that 15-minute conversation with him one-on-one, and it was wonderful. He really is as wonderful. Well, depending who you talk to, I think he's wonderful. He has this wonderful candor that's still very kind, which is how he describes it. And I think he is what you see. Like what you see online is who he is. And so that
I
was really
see.
cool.
Yeah, I've listened to other people who have worked with him in the past, and they all say the same thing, that everybody likes what he does online, but you don't want to do what he does because he's that person that you see online 24/7, 365. You
Yeah.
cannot match the energy that he brings.
No. And I don't think he expects you to either, which is great. But yeah, that is definitely not my vibe. Like it fuels him and excites him. And that's what we all should be doing, regardless of what that looks like, right? For him, it's the social media world, all of that stuff. It just really fuels him. So if anything, it's a good example of that. I myself could not be on 24/7 and identify myself only with work. But of course, everyone's different, right? Like whatever
Of
makes you
course.
happy.
Yeah, I think that if you are not really dedicated in that, or that doesn't excite you, it's a good recipe to approaching the burnout phase very quickly. At least that's what I think. So if we go back to your experience of starting the newsletter, that was the time where you were slowly feeling burnout, and you were feeling that you need to find an outlet of whatever you are learning. You were having a hard time because you just recently moved to a new country. So in those moments, were there any signals that you realized, that you were aware of, that it's time to slow down? Or was there a rock bottom, or was it just more a gradual realization? How did that come across?
You mean from leaving music and all of that?
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, which I think a lot of people can relate to this, I was kind of forced to slow down. I don't think I would have come to that conclusion at that time in my life on purpose. It was more like I had basically accomplished everything that I felt I wanted to in music. It kind of ended on a sour note, and I felt like my only choice was to leave at that point. And so when I left, I just took a temporary marketing job just to get out of the environment, switch it up. I knew that there was no up from where I was. So that in itself kind of slowed me down, but it really was when my husband and I got married and moved to Switzerland that it really just, life just shuddered to a stop. And again, not of my own decision. It's such a untethered and scary feeling where all of these changes happen at once. I had never been married before. Now I'm married. I had never traveled to Europe, much less lived there before. All of my stuff was in storage. I no longer had a job, even a temp job. I didn't have anything. And so this whole world that I operated within, that defined so much of who I was and what I did during the day and how I thought about my next move, the container of it all was just removed all of a sudden. And so I actually felt pretty depressed for 3 months when I first moved because I didn't know how to make sense of not having that foundation anymore. And so I feel like it just naturally stopped me. But I would like to have said that I made the decision on my own, but that's a really hard decision to make when we live in a world that's run on fast-paced productivity, like going as fast as you can, never stopping. So
Yeah, everybody's experience is different. You're right. It doesn't have to be. In more cases than not, it is that you are pushed into something, and that's when you realize enough is enough, and that's when you try to pivot. Not everybody has the opportunity or the privilege of making that decision, making that choice on their own. So it's just different experiences. Now you call this the good space. In today's world, how do you define the good space in this chaotic world?
yes. So how I think of the good space is we are so inundated 24/7 with noise, with speed. We, rather than driving to the store, we can just order Amazon or order delivery. Rather than talking to someone on the phone, we can text or go on social media. Everything is just, the feedback is just immediate. The dopamine cycles are insane. Like, we don't have the ability anymore to really regulate ourselves because everything is just so high all the time. And so the good space essentially means that the remedy to connecting to yourself again, to feeling grounded, to hearing your own voice requires you creating space with intention and on purpose. We live in a world that is just sympathetic nervous system triggering, fight, flight, freeze, shame. That is the foundation. That is the baseline. We can only find space within ourselves, within our lives, and activate that nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest, your digest. That's the key to creativity. That's the key to regeneration and reflection and restoration. It has to be on purpose. Like, it will never be the default. No one can force it upon us. And so the good space is essentially your landing place to figure out, how do I create that buffer zone? How do I come back to myself and become grounded again, connect with myself, connect with others, and just feel like I have some semblance of control over my everyday experience? Because otherwise, if you don't do that with intention, you're just a victim and a reactor to what the world is putting on you, rather than being very intentional with your values, making sure that your life aligns with those values. And so it's really just essentially like taking yourself back and claiming yourself again.
Okay. So as you talk about nervous system regulations, before we, in most cases, from experiences, from my own experience, I would say the same thing, that before you reach that awareness stage, you have to go through the sucky part of it. And when you go through that, I'm guessing there might be some body signals that you would notice. From your experience about nervous system regulations, I'm guessing that first, when it is dysregulated, our body might just give off certain signals that things are not the way they should be. Can you talk about that? I think there was one article on your newsletter where you talked about nervous system regulations.
Yeah. Hopefully I remember most of what I wrote. Yeah, so when you're dysregulated, it can come in a lot of different forms. It can come off as anxiety. You say you're burnt out, you're exhausted, you're fatigued. Maybe one little thing goes wrong in your day and it just like triggers you and you get really upset. It's because you're already at the edge. You're sitting at the edge of okay, and oop, my lid's flipped. I can't handle this anymore. Like, your capacity to handle things is severely diminished. I'm just trying to think of, like, on a day-to-day basis, I feel like as soon as you wake up, if you're on your phone and you feel that like buzz, that anxiety, that's a triggered nervous system that's not regulated. Whereas if you're regulated, doing things like no phones for an hour, being very slow, being very deliberate, you're making bone broth that requires 5 steps of like getting the pot, putting in the bone broth, letting it simmer for 15 minutes. You're letting things take up space. You're letting things take time. That's regulation. That's calming the vagus nerve down. That's being present and not just reacting throughout your day. And then, of course, when you're dysregulated, you can feel shaky. You cannot be sleeping well. You could have problems just breathing properly. I mean, the list could go on and on as far as dysregulation. And again, our normal state as a society is dysregulation. So you can just assume you're dysregulated unless you're doing things to regulate yourself. Like, because it's funny. That's honestly the first thing I thought when I went on my journey of dysregulation versus regulation is, oh, how do I know if I'm dysregulated? And my therapist actually said, just assume you are, because our society is dysregulated. It's set up for dysregulation. Like in LA, you get in your car, traffic, that's triggering, that's stressful. Work, triggering, stressful. If you're a parent, your kids and their demands and everything that they ask of you, triggering, stressful. So I probably could not find one person, unless you're like some monk living in a remote village where you don't come in contact with anyone. I would be very shocked if anyone listening to this would consider themselves regulated if they're not actively earning and creating that regulation. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking though, in the practical way of regulating this nervous system that is currently dysregulated, other than avoiding your phone first thing in the morning, can you suggest some other tips that we can all learn from and implement in our life?
Yeah. So I actually did a 30-day nervous system regulation experiment, which you can check out on my Substack if you want more info on that. So I would suggest at first, like if you're just starting, one, set up a system where you can actually track and understand what moments or what parts of your day are dysregulating you the most. And so I actually have a worksheet that I used where I tracked that. Moments that I was regulated, moments where I was dysregulated. What am I doing to regulate myself versus what's happening that's causing me a lot of stress? And then I would find a way to keep track of what am I creating every day? What am I consuming every day? So it's just a little log so that you can become more aware, because awareness truly is the seed and the start of any kind of change. And then the other thing that I did was I picked one thing that I felt would regulate me. And then, I'm trying to think of exactly how I would word it. But I picked one thing that would regulate me and then just focused on that one thing for 1 week. For me, it was creating a good breakfast every morning. It didn't matter if I ate junk for lunch or for dinner, or if I had a lot of sugar later in the afternoon. My number one focus was a good breakfast, because the key is, if you put too much on your plate and you take away too many things, we all know that's a disaster when it comes to habits, right? Everyone thinks of habits as restriction, take away, change. Our bodies are averse to change, especially when it comes to things that we use to soothe ourselves for dysregulated nervous systems. So pick one thing to add that's positive, track everything, and then I would start and end your day quiet and slow, nourishing if you can, even if it's 10 minutes, whether that's drinking something warm, journaling, or meditating. And then I did this thing as well for a couple of weeks where a somatic practitioner actually recommended this. She said that you set 5 alarms throughout the day, and you can pick whatever those intervals are, and you have the alarm say regulated or not regulated. And so it's almost like a reminder to check in. Am I regulated right now? Yes. Great. What did I do before or after? Or like, keep doing what you're doing. And then if one of the check-ins ring off and you think, oh, I'm not regulated. Okay, maybe I need to pause, go take a walk. Maybe I need to pause and read for 5 minutes, or do a little bit of breathing for 30 seconds even. Just a way to kind of listen to your body. I think that's the key thing, is training yourself to listen and to also react and treat and care for yourself when you know you're dysregulated, which is really hard in the beginning. But I think those little seeds help build the momentum and then help you snowball into making it a regular practice.
Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying this episode and getting value out of these conversations, I have a small favor to ask from you. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify or anywhere else, I would greatly appreciate if you leave a 5-star review. It's going to help more people discover this show. And if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to my channel and drop a comment with your thoughts. I would love to hear your take as well. So let's keep these conversations going. All right, back to the episode. I see. Yeah, what I'm taking away from this is that what gets tracked gets managed. So the very first step is tracking what dysregulation feels like. And that takes us to journaling. Or it's not necessarily just journaling, but actually tracking moods. So this is a very specific kind of journaling where you're tracking your moods. And then I really like the idea of the 5 alarms. Otherwise, we just keep forgetting about what we are trying to accomplish in the day.
Yeah. No,
I see.
100%. And this is the thing too, is like, it really just depends what you prefer. I like writing. So if you're more of an audio person, you can track it with, a voice memo. The only thing is with writing, it's just easier to visually see, what's going on. Whereas the voice memo, you'd have to go back and listen. But there's so many different ways that you can track it. Or if you're someone that's like just even thinking about it and being aware of it works, that's fine too. Because truly, whatever gets you going, the minimum possible is what you should do. Because that's what James Clear says, that to
Yeah.
be consistent, do be adaptable. You have to be adaptable. So some days you might not feel up to the most that you were hoping to, but if you can just do a little bit of it, then that is better to be consistent than to just not do it at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm going to try this because I struggle with this. I absolutely struggle with this. And as you said that, pick one item. In your case, you said that just you will start with making one decent, healthy breakfast, and that's the only thing you're focusing on. For me, I feel like I need the idea about put my phone away. No need to, I would be on my phone thinking that I'm listening to an audiobook or I'm listening to an educational podcast. So that's technically a good thing. But you, that is a very slippery slope where you would just start scrolling on Instagram. So just setting aside the phone till like 8, 9, 10 a.m. I think that's what I will try myself to get into so that I can see if I'm able to even identify if I'm dysregulated or if there is room for improvement in there.
Yes, I love that. And even just the practice of being with yourself and not having someone else's voice, opinion, ideas is very powerful. And so I think you'll notice that benefit as well. And for other fellow creatives and writers, I always tell them first thing in the morning, do a morning routine, something that soothes you and sets you up for your day, and then create first thing before anybody else's beliefs, opinions, ideas come into your brain, because you want to know what you have to think and feel. And usually we can't if we're always consuming versus creating. And again, it goes back to tracking. What am I creating versus what I'm consuming? And the idea is if you have a log of it, you can go back and look at a pattern. At least for me, I absolutely found a pattern. On the days where I was the most dysregulated, the column of dysregulation was more full than the regulation creation column. And then on the days where I had so many things I created and very little things I consumed, it was like I was so happy, and I saw that correlation, and it was really cool to see that in my own life, right? It's not just someone writing an article or doing a podcast about it. I'm actually seeing it in my own life. And so it's a really cool feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no point listening to it, consuming it if you're not going to implement this. So we all know it's easy to say, obviously, but it's harder to implement it. But that's the right way of going with it. So it's nice to see that, yes, there is, you will see the results on paper if you just stick with it for 7 days or 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. In one of your other articles, it's called Doing Nothing. You talked about the importance of idleness, but people usually struggle with that, at least in today's world, the super connected social media world. Why do you think that is?
Oh, man. I still struggle with that, even though I'm writing about this and learning about it constantly. I mean, I'm like, where do I start? So we definitely struggle with idleness because, again, everything we do has a dopamine kick to it. And so it's an addiction. Social media is an addiction. There's a reason why the creators of social media do not let their kids use the apps, do not let them use smartphones, because they know what it does to your brain. It's equivalent to me to sugar, to alcohol, to other things. And granted, I'm sure alcohol addictions and drug addictions can be even more intense. And like, I can't speak to the exact comparison, but what it does in the brain is very similar to other addictions. And we're just allowed to do it, right? Like, no one's going to stop me from scrolling. So I think that's also very hard, is like the way that we live our lives now is so consumed and steeped into, again, quick dopamine fixes. And I actually was late diagnosed with ADHD. And the number one thing the person who diagnosed me said was, for people with ADHD, you need to be using your smartphones less. You need to go more analog and like strip it of all the responsibilities. I was actually reading this one, I don't know if it was an ADHD book or a dopamine book, but it was essentially saying that the components of addiction is when you rely on one thing for many different aspects of your life, essentially, and that a smartphone, you go to it for a calculator, for your map, to communicate with people. You go to it for your entertainment. Basically, everything that we look for in our lives is on this one thing. So it makes it that much harder to get away from it, not mentioning like the actual chemical reaction that it's creating in your brain. And so, I mean, I fall prey to this too. When I'm sitting on the couch, I don't want to be idle. I want to be going on Substack, or I want to be texting someone, or I want to be looking up, oh, how much does this thing cost? And actually, you know what? I need to buy more toilet paper. So I'm going to go on Amazon. Like, it's just all right there. And so
Right.
that's why, like, you have everything at your fingertips. Why your brain has zero motivation to want to be idle.
It's scary. It's scary thinking about this. Yeah.
It is. It
Because
absolutely is.
I feel like if we take all of this and then talk about, because you are also in the productivity space, and that's what I aspire to be in that world too. When we constantly are spending time this way, we curse ourselves and we get in the guilt mode that we are not being productive enough. And that's where we start comparing our output with productivity. And that's a very dangerous place to be. So if you are, let's say, a 9 to 5 worker, the downward spiral for a toxic productivity is very different. But if you are in the creative space, the procrastination or burnout, that also looks different. Even toxic productivity is very different there, because the constant push, go hard, work hard, that is going to backfire in a different way if you're a 9 to 5 worker or if you are in the creative space. Because if you're in the creative space, the ideas are going to constantly just come to you. You would just go for a random walk and an idea will struck you. Or if you are in the shower, an idea is going to come up in the shower. That is not necessarily true for a 9 to 5 worker, right? Because you have a set 8, 9 hours, 10 hours that you're going to work, and then you're just going to shut off. This was a long way of saying that in the creative space, how do you avoid toxic productivity trap? Are there any non-negotiables that you get into, or are there things that you should do, or are there things that we should avoid to get away from this kind of a toxic trap?
Oh my gosh. I was like, I could literally talk for 5 hours on this. So I'm like, where do I start? So, okay, because I don't want to overwhelm anyone that will listen, or you. But my first thought that came to mind is, we first and foremost need to understand where this idea of productivity comes from, who it benefits, and what that means for us moving forward and how we need to change it. So because obviously productivity as we know it, like you said, push hard, grind, forget your well-being, forget your sleep, forget eating well, working out, like production, growth, action. That is what we describe as productivity. And if you dive deeper, productivity came from the industrial era, which I'm sure everyone knows this by now, but it was based on units produced and how much time. And you can get the efficiency and the cost down by producing more with less time. That's productivity. It's a visual, tangible way of seeing things being produced. And so we moved into the knowledge work and the knowledge industrial revolution, I guess you want to say. And so all of a sudden, our work product is not units produced or cars produced or, mugs produced. Like, you can't really quantify it. And so people just didn't know how to translate it. So they're like, well, I guess we'll just use the same definition for a completely different set of skills and work and product. And so it's caused a lot of problems because what can you quantify? Your time. It doesn't even matter that, like, if you hire me as a consultant and I can get something done in 10 minutes that a beginner would take 5 hours to get done, some people can't wrap their head around, wait, you use 10 minutes, so why am I paying this much money? Because it's like they're still thinking of trading something for something tangible for something else tangible. Right. And so I think we're getting better about, rather than selling time, selling results, because like you said, especially in knowledge work or creative fields, you can be thinking of something while you're taking a walk or while you're in the shower. Like, I mean, it's still worth something. My brain.
How do you rank that? There is no way to rank that.
No, but that's the thing. And so that's why I think we need to stop thinking of productivity as like growth, action, using our time, and seeing it more as like, what result am I giving you? What value am I giving you that's helping you, regardless of how it came about? Like the fact that I'm sitting here giving you this end product or this idea, who cares how long it took or what I'm doing to get it? You should just care about that end result. And so I feel like as us from the creator perspective, it can be so tricky and, like you said, toxic, because productivity is tied to capitalism. And what does capitalism thrive on? It thrives on activity, on growth, on action, on profits. So essentially, we have all bought into this definition that serves the people making the profit. Like, it doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve you. We just took it on as our own because the world is run on a capitalism viewpoint. And so how do we thrive and survive? By buying into capitalism. And so how you buy into it is working longer hours, hustling, grinding, all of these things. And so unfortunately, the answer is not to change the current model. It's to create a new one completely. So I think it's gonna need a lot of brave people to stand apart, as Jenny Odell says in her book, How to Do Nothing. It's going to require us to reject the current definition, to all create and take on a new one together, and to basically like create boundaries and stand apart while still living in society. There's so many amazing examples of people who didn't just go and try to live off on their own, which again, How to Do Nothing is an incredible book about all of this stuff, but she talks about communes and how back in the day people would go live on communes to just escape society, but the reason they didn't work and why leaving society is not the answer. And so I feel like with productivity, to not have it feel toxic anymore, we have to reject the current model. We have to all agree on a new one and really reinforce it and stand our ground in it, because otherwise it's just, we're going to keep falling victim to a model that's not made for our well-being, that's not made for our wellness. It's for whoever's profiting from it. And I sure as heck don't want to just live my life for someone else's profit.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we could go into like ideas for how to do it, but like that's like for me the foundation. Like if you don't accept and know that, then anything I say is not going to matter, because you have to first understand that we have to reject in place and then create a new model before anything actually like sticks.
Yeah, I because I started all of this with a YouTube channel which sucked. It's still on, but that's where I post my podcast videos on now. So I was in the book space for a while, and then I made like 50, 60 videos, and it sucked through and through for the 3 years that I was in. And that's where that was my first initial entry to the creative world. Then it turned into podcasting, and now I have a Substack newsletter too. But in all of that, I realized that the idea behind what productivity looks like is very different, because this world also demands a equal contribution from rest. So there has to be a link between productivity and rest, and we need to be aware of what needs to be prioritized in this moment. So that's what my learning has been in the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you said it sucked, but the good for you. You're just like, I don't care. I'm going to start. I'm going to do my thing. And I'm sure you learned so much from that experience. That's actually the part that most people who are creators, entrepreneurs, they tend to skip or get afraid of. Just start, be a beginner, do things poorly and learn as you go. Because that's truly, no one can do it for you. No one can give you the learnings for you. And I think that's why so many of us were stuck in like the course and, workshop era, because we thought everyone could give us an answer, but really you just have to dig in and do it yourself. And so I think that's awesome you did that.
Yeah, I've noticed it recently that doesn't matter what you are trying to learn, you have to be ready to suck at it for a long, long period of time. And that's the only way you would get your authentic version out of that practice. So that's my experience through that. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I love that you said too, rest is equally as important. And that's the part, and that's the new productivity that I want everyone to be aware of and take on as their own. And again, Jenny Odell, How to Do Nothing. She's amazing. She talks about regenerative productivity. So we've only been valuing and sold one half, because productivity is two halves, right? It's the growth, it's the production. The other half is the regeneration, it's reflection, it's rest. And obviously, the world only values one side. It values the production. And so that's why all of us feel, I guess I shouldn't say all, because maybe not everyone, but most of us feel guilty when we rest, because guess what? The world doesn't value rest. And so
Right.
subconsciously, we feel bad about that. We feel shame. We get into, again, our dysregulated state. It's a cycle that actually I wrote, and I'm going to, I don't know if I've already posted it, but it's going to be part of a workshop that I'm doing. But there's this cycle where it's like you just push, 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 you crash, you rest, but you feel guilty for it. And then that triggers your dysregulation and you feel shame or frozen. And then it starts over again. So you keep pushing. And so it just gets into this cycle. And I just think if we start to value the rest and regulation and all that stuff, guess what? You're actually going to be more productive because creativity, that is regulation. Your creativity does not happen in a dysregulated state. And so I often, again, I think that's the foundation. If you're dysregulated, all your decisions, your ideas, your moves are going to come from anxiety, fear, freeze, flight, fight.
Makes sense.
Versus if I'm regulated, that's where creativity is. That's where peace, that's where security and confidence is. So I would rather make decisions from that side and that part of my nervous system than the other. And so again, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It absolutely feels uncomfortable even for me now. But I try to remind myself, okay, I want to create ideas for this workshop, but I'm feeling really stressed and anxious. My normal reaction is to just keep creating anyway. But now I'm forcing myself to either go lay down or meditate or just take a break and revisit it later or tomorrow. And the funny thing is that the way we've been conditioned, a lot of us will get scared of that. We'll think, oh my gosh, I don't have much time. I don't have much time to do this. And so I'm just going to have to push through anyway. But the funny thing is, I kid you not, every single time that I did let myself regulate again, my ideas came stronger, with more clarity, faster, and with more power than had I just pushed through. And so in the end, it all evens out. So even if you do take that time to rest and regulate, your body and spirit's going to make up for that time so fast and you're going to enjoy it much better. So it's actually just a better way of doing things. We've just been sold that it's not.
Yeah, I really appreciate you say that, because I have always looked at, lately I have looked at this, the balance is in terms of energy, not work output, but what is the energy level that you are working towards this? Because I've also always thought that if you are truly being authentic to yourself, that's where the real work, your creative work will come out that you will be happy with, right? But even in that process of finding your authentic self, I get into that trap of it needs to be effortless, because if it's not effortless, it means I'm pushing, because if I'm pushing, it means I'm forcing myself to do it. So it's not effortless. So is that really the right energy that I need to be focusing on? Or even in the perfect world where, yes, there are times where your energy is not the way it's supposed to be or what you are aiming for, but you have to push through it because you are aware that you're just lazy in the moment. Have you experienced that? I'm not sure if I put it perfectly or if I just confused you there.
I mean, well, I think I know what you're asking. Can you maybe try to reword it again so I can make sure I'm answering the right question?
I mean, okay, so do you think it has anything to do with being effortless? The reason I say that is because there are times where, yes, you absolutely love the thing you do, but I'm still forcing myself. I want to send out my newsletter every Sunday evening before the day is over. It should be effortless because I like it. But in this moment, my energy is telling me that I don't want to do it. So it's not technically effortless. So in such cases, yes, we are aware of what energy management feels like, what nervous system regulation feels like. But have you experienced that? I know I love writing newsletters, but Sunday evening, I just want to put my feet up and I just want to chill. I just want to watch Netflix. I don't want to do this. So it's technically not effortless. That's what I'm trying to ask.
Oh my gosh. I experience that more often than I'd like to admit. Absolutely. Because, it's not a perfect science. And there is a difference between keeping yourself accountable and doing what you say you're going to do, because that has its own reward and own confidence boost. And then there's a difference between like, I am severely dysregulated and I need to take this time. So I think it's just like finding that balance with yourself. And if you find that you're constantly dysregulated and hitting deadlines so late when you'd rather be relaxing, then that could just be like a sign to check in. Am I feeling this way because this is just a bad time to do this? And if I figured out a way to do it sooner or batch schedule everything in advance, like maybe this is a scheduling habit issue. Or is this something deeper where this is no longer aligned and I need to be rethinking, more things? I wouldn't go so deep right away, but I would just be like, I really enjoy my evenings. That helps me feel regulated. And I like the idea of just putting my feet up. So is there a way that I can do this earlier? Like that's kind of just how I would think of it. Cause let me tell you, there are so many nights where I put off my newsletter till way too late and I'm just like angrily getting it ready. Not because I hate doing it or what I'm saying, but it's like exactly what you said. I'm like, I just want to, the baby's down and I want to sleep, but I'm also like, well, this is just the reality for right now. And of course, like if you're doing a launch or something where it requires more effort, that's okay if like there are periods of push and then there are periods of pause. I think so many of us just tend to ignore pause period, but a lot of P's there. So I guess what it is just like balance, right? So, and checking in with yourself. I don't know. Would you say that for you, it's more a scheduling issue than it is?
I like what you said there. I think it's not about energy anymore. It's about scheduling because you can't really lie to yourself, right? You can say that, oh, right now I don't feel like doing this. Well, you deep down, you can say anything you want to someone else out there, but you know that you wasted your time. Your screen time tells you that you were on Instagram 2 hours this morning. So I like that. I like what you said, that it might not just be an energy issue, but there might be other logistical issues that were in my control, but I decided to let it slip.
Yeah. And sometimes it's okay also to just be like, well, I wasn't exactly on point the way I wanted to, and just give yourself grace because we'll never be perfect. It's always going to be a continual learning process. I'm actually going through Slow Productivity by Cal Newport right now. And he's very much about eliminating as many decisions as possible. And so that's what I've been working on, where what decisions can I just automate where I don't have to think about it or spend energy knowing when it's going to happen. So I'm currently working through that. And so maybe it's like, okay, my newsletter goes out on a Tuesday, so maybe they need to all be done by Friday, 5 p.m. and that's it. That's the rule. And that's the deadline I work on. Or maybe it's, like for me on my phone, it's a rule that I want to have 3 hours or less screen time that's been spent. Granted, I go over it. It's not like I'm perfect, but that's the goal always. And so knowing that that's a kind of inner rule that I've created, it's really helped me not scroll. It's helped me be more intentional with how much time I want to use. And it's not like I want to hit the 3 hours. If I can be like on the weekends, sometimes I'm only on it for an hour and a half and that feels so good. And then during the week, it's more because I'm on Substack and I'm interacting with people. So it's a little different, but I think that's kind of the curse of having so much freedom and choice is where, when you're working a 9 to 5, you have structure, what happens when people are setting meetings, or you have project managers. If you're working at an agency, it's not all the decisions are up to you, but when you work for yourself, all the decisions are up to you. And so it really is helpful to have systems so that you can eliminate the energy as much as possible towards making decisions all the time.
I like the rules part of it. I think rules will set accountability measures for your daily actions, because those rules will keep you accountable. That, okay, as you said, 3 hours screen time. Then as soon as you're approaching that, you realize, okay, I need to be accountable of what I promised myself. So this is the rule, or the rule of finishing the article by Friday for something that is going out on Tuesday. So another rule. So on my phone, I have this app called Opal, which shuts down all the apps that I don't want to touch. There are times where I shut that app, or I delete the app because it doesn't let me open Instagram at night. So having such rules is nice. That is one way of really being accountable of what you want to do, and you actually go ahead and do it. Because as you said, once you start seeing the progress, that in itself is also a confidence booster.
Absolutely. And also the urge to pick up our phone, it's to fill space, right? And so again, going back to the good space, let yourself have space. Like why, or just start questioning why do I feel like I need to pick up my phone right
That's
now?
so tough.
Or why, yeah. Or why do I feel like I need an app to keep me off my apps? You know what I mean? For
I
me,
know.
it's like, as funny as this sounds, because I used to songwrite and sing and all that stuff. That's why I started working in the music industry. And so again, the person that diagnosed me with ADHD, she said the way to kind of unravel it or lessen the symptoms is lessen the dopamine highs that you create in your life. And so she said, do things that are hard, that take effort, like learning an instrument or cooking, or things that kind of deconstruct the quickness of our normal things
I
that we used
see.
to do. Or like, rather than ordering on Amazon, drive to a store and buy something, which is funny because I was born pre cell phones and internet was like a new thing. And the fact that like, oh, driving to the store, like that's a new coping. It's like, that's how everyone did it for all time and eternity until like the last 20, 30 years. But anyways, but what I try to do is like when I feel that anxiety of like, I need to be doing something, my fingers need to be moving, I need to pick up my phone. Sometimes I'll just sit in it and just be really annoyed. And I'm like, oh, I want something stimulating. And then I'll walk to my piano and do a couple scales. And I'm like, okay, I'll just do 2 scales. It's really annoying because I don't want to be doing this, but it's an instrument. It's good for my brain. And then 20 minutes later, I'm still playing. And I was like, oh, okay. Because it's almost like you have to retrain your brain to associate reward with slower dopamine activities. Because right
Yeah.
now, it's like, I just want it quickly. So I'm motivating you to pick up your phone. I'm motivating you to do all these things that make it fast. Whereas piano or even writing or other things that are slower, it's like, ugh, this is not as fast as picking up your phone. So I don't want to motivate you to do it. So it's almost like you have
Right.
to sometimes override it or just let yourself have that space and that pause. And yeah,
It's tough. It's tough.
it is. It
It
is.
is tough. You talked about Cal Newport's Slow Productivity, and I'm sure you have read other books too. What is one productivity practice that you believed in before but have completely abandoned it now? Because just from your experience, it feels like, no, that doesn't resonate with you at all.
Ooh, yeah. So the first thing that came to mind was I used to schedule every hour of my day in
Wow.
my planner. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was actually a coping mechanism for people with ADHD. I didn't know I had it
Okay.
at the time. So like it does work if you really are just completely off the walls and have no sense of like schedule. But I used to every Friday, I would look at my next week and I'd schedule from like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, this is what I'm doing this hour. This is what I'm doing this hour. Okay, I have a 30-minute lunch break. And then I would find myself working till 8 or 9 at night and just obsessive and like not stopping. And so I definitely stopped that. And I don't know if there's any old articles that mention that, but I literally am like, I can't do that anymore because I realized that the creative, expressive, open side of me, it doesn't need that much restriction. And that was just a result of buying into capitalism productivity, right? Like
Right.
making sure every hour is max optimized. That's what it is. So I don't believe anymore in optimizing every second of your time.
The great productivity experts out there call it time blocking. So,
Although I do think if you want to get a big project done, I think time blocking is valuable if you're like, okay, 2 hours of my day, this is when I'm doing this article, but then you leave the rest open. Like, I think some blocking is necessary, but like the obsessive, I can't use my time for anything but producing. That's the part I was like, I need to let that go because, and again, Cal Newport talks about this in Slow Productivity, but he's basically saying to limit the missions that you have and then the projects that you have, and that every day one project should be the main goal, even if you have
right.
to do other things. So like if today my main goal was to do a great job on this podcast, it's like, okay, great. We've blocked the time off and maybe I'm working on, ordering something or I'm helping something with my toddler, but I just know at this time it's go time for this one project, this one thing, then that can still help you progress, but not constrict you and make you feel non-human. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but
No, that's perfectly fine because that takes me to the next not problem, but you said you have a toddler. I feel like how do you even manage to balance time management or time blocking with a kid in your house? Because I've seen my brother, I've seen my other friends. I feel like once you put a baby in the equation, that's it. Now the baby runs the schedule. Everything else comes secondary. So in such scenarios, in such environments, I always wonder, how do people manage to complete what they aspire to do on a daily basis? And I ask this because I'm about to have a kid soon too. So that's why I'm
Oh,
nervous about this, that how will I manage my time once my house is going to get chaotic very quickly? And I'm talking like 5 days from now.
oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Is it your, oh my gosh.
It's the first one, yes.
You do know if it's a girl or a boy or?
It's a girl. Yeah.
I have a girl too. They're the best. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I hope everything's been okay for your
Yes.
wife and and that the process goes well. Oh my gosh, my heart, because I know that postpartum
Thank you.
postpartum as a woman can be crazy because anyways, I could have a whole other conversation about that. But yes, I feel like one, you have to have support. And this is what breaks my heart about people who don't have the resources that I do. Even so, I have help 3 times a week. And then the other 2 days I'm with my daughter full time. And so on the days that I have support, that's much easier, obviously, because I'm like, okay, the nanny's here from this time to this time. And in that window,
Right.
that's what I can get done. And then Tuesday, Thursday, she still takes a nap one time every day. And so it's during anything I can get done during that nap time, great. And if not, then I just kind of have to learn to let it go. I think that was the hardest adjustment for me, is that you have to be so much more adaptable because toddlers and babies can be unpredictable. You know, some days they're totally fine and other days they need you more than they often do. So I think a lot of it has to do with, one, what are your values? Always remember that. That's something I've been focusing on, of like, okay, I may be upset that I'm not getting this thing done right now, but my value is, a lot of it's freedom, creativity, wealth, acceptance. Okay, I need to lean into acceptance right now that this is not going the way I want it to, and thinking of the bigger picture, essentially, because it's really easy to get stuck in the granular and the frustration of the moment. So again, getting help, because I don't know how else you could do it anyway, but newborns nap a ton. So if you can, grabbing it while they're napping, but also giving yourself rest, because it's a big adjustment identity-wise, lifestyle-wise. And then I would also say, for me at least, being a mom has clarified so much what I actually want to be doing and achieving. Whereas before I was like, I can do it all. I have all the time in the world. I'll do 10 different things. But you quickly realize, whoa, my capacity is not the same. And I resisted that for so long. But once I accepted it, I realized, okay, there's maybe 1 or 2 major things that I can aim for and go really hard and like just do those really well. And I have to release and let go of other things. So for me, I had to release my podcast. It was just, as you know, a lot of effort. I had an editor. I had an assistant helping me at the time, and I just had to take it off my plate. There were things like gift guides that I would do. I had to kind of just let that go. Like, there were little things where my energy didn't need to be there anymore. And so I have whittled it down to just like 1 or 2 focuses, and then every day, again, based on your energy, regulation, super important. It would be nice to get these 3 things done today, which feels good to start on right now. And then just trying to get just max 3 things done and then letting the rest go. It's a lot of just grace and focus and intention, and making sure that what you do spend your energy on actually moves the needle, because you will probably find out, once your daughter is here, you're going to realize, wow, I spent so much time doing things that didn't actually matter. And maybe not, maybe it's just me, but like, wow, I did not need to be filling my time so much. Like, essentially you can get things done in the time you're allotted. Like, something that I could get done in an hour now, I probably would have filled like 8 hours in the past, because I'm like, oh, it's just this one thing. And then I just lollygag the whole time. So you'll be amazed at how concise and quick and like to the point you're going to get, because you know that's the time you have.
That's one thing I've heard from my friends, that your efficiency goes through the roof.
Yes.
Because you don't know when you're going to get this little free window.
Yep.
It might be tomorrow. You might not even have it for a couple of days.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes super clear very fast what's important to you.
Yeah, I like the idea about values, because everything else just strips away, and then you focus on the 2-3 things that you want, because ultimately that's what everything is about. So why not just focus on that? Hey, quick break. If you're enjoying these conversations, you're going to want to check out my Substack newsletter. I plan on sharing bite sized insights on productivity, slowing down, and really enjoying the work that you do. No fluff, just real talk, different actionable tips that I learn, books that I read, other podcasts that I listen to, or newsletters that I read. Basically, anything that pops in my head that doesn't necessarily make it to the show. So, if you're interested, use the link in my show notes and sign up for my newsletter. Let's keep these conversations going. All right? Okay, back to the episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which again, going back to what you're saying about like idleness and like everything, it's so hard to really make sure that you can focus on your values and what's important to you. And, creating and doing the things that you want to create, it's going to require intention and boundaries and discipline. There's just no way around it. Like if you're letting everything and anything overwhelm you and like flood you all the time, you're just going to feel a victim to the world's values, and the world's values often conflict and clash with our own. And the soonest we can, again, I still struggle with this. It's an unraveling, it's an unlearning. It's in our bones to function this way. So definitely go easy on yourself and give yourself grace if it's messy and not, sexy feeling to like change this. But you really just have to protect and nurture the environment that you want to live in, what you want to spend your energy on, and what you want to create. It's very intentional act.
Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to need all of this soon.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I just started a newsletter. I have probably less than 2 months ago. Some of my curiosities are regarding your newsletter now. Where do you think all your ideas come from? Do you just let creativity flow naturally, or do you intentionally batch them? Or what is your process, basically?
Yeah. Man, it's so funny because I've been writing newsletters for like 7 years now. So it's kind of just, I trust the process and it's automatic for me. But as far as ideas, honestly, I get it from the books I read, from the things that I'm learning in my life, from conversations I have, or I almost just stay open to, wow, that was a really cool experience. Is this something that I can write about? What's really helped me though is at the end of every month, I sense it now. Before, I think I was more nervous about it, but it was like, what's the theme for the month? So every month has a theme, so that, for example, like this month's theme, which is April, is the productivity reset. Last month was about applying nervous system regulation. The month before that was the nervous system regulation experiment. So I kind of already know the container I'm going to stay in. And people seem to really like that, because rather than just writing one-off topics, I'm going deep into one, and it's about my thoughts or experiences or what I'm reading throughout that month. And
That's
then also,
great idea.
Yeah. So I love that. And that honestly, like, I'm trying to think if you're just starting, like, I think what the process would be, but it's almost just been intuitive. And also when I'm reading what other articles in the past, like on Medium, I would see what articles were hitting really well. And I'm like, oh, okay, that means people really care about this. Is there a perspective I can add, or is there something from my point of view that I could contribute to this conversation? But now it's just more like sensing and what I'm reading and naturally drawn to, and can I provide value with what I'm learning.
So then if you just read or listen to podcast or have a conversation, do you just take a minute and then write it down so that you don't forget it? Because that's what I've been doing right now.
Yeah. I think that for sure. For me, it's more because writing is a way to say something, right? Like when you have something to say, when you have an opinion or a thought, you want to share it. And so you write it. And so for me, I'm reading the book and I'm highlighting things and writing notes. And I'm like, wow, that's a very interesting perspective. And this is what I feel and think about it. And so, I'll take like either notes in my phone, or I'll either open a Substack draft and be like, okay, this idea, and I want to talk about it from this perspective. And then maybe I'll go to it later. And then for a while, what I'd been doing, this is actually a method that Joanna Wiebe, she's a copywriter. I was trained by her in her programs. And actually one of her methods for writing a blog post really made a few of them go viral, which was amazing. So she recommends picking the topic that you want to talk about, and then putting your quotes in first before you write your perspective. And so for me, that was easy because I'm reading books, I'm reading articles. So a lot of times I would just copy and paste or write down or take a picture of the note from, or later I would sit down with the book and then go through and see what quotes really stood out to me. And so I'll type those in first, and then I build my perspective through and around and like in between all of them. And so that's how I actually first started really taking off was, okay, these are the research and the quotes and the ideas that I love. This is my perspective, and basically weaving them together and creating a pattern or theme or connection. And so that really resonated. But then now I'm much better at like, ooh, I read something. This is the thought I want to run off with. And this is the difference that I want to point out to people, or this is the perspective. Like it's essentially like what is of value here and what can make someone think differently or feel better or transform the way they're living. And that's like this seed of everything. And then I don't know if I'm explaining it well, because it's a very like spiritual, intuitive thing. So it's hard to like make it tangible.
I mean, there's 7 years of experience speaking here, right? So that's why it's alien to me, because I'm speaking from 2 months of experience, not right. So that's why.
Well, I hope I explained it enough to like help you.
No, absolutely, definitely. I do the same thing, but it's just I'm probably slower than you right now because it takes time for me to put my thoughts into words. I did that before because YouTube also requires scripting. So it would be a little different, but I had that experience going on. Now, podcasting, it's a little different because when I have my own solo podcast, that also requires writing a giant script, which has to be conversational. So I have a little bit of experience here and there, but newsletter, it's a little different because you don't want to bore people. You want to stick with under 5 minutes of read. I've seen people write 25-minute reads too. And I'm like, I don't read it. Does everybody out there read it? So it's personal. I get it, because I would read for 5 hours. I would read a book. So why wouldn't someone read a 25-minute article?
Yeah, especially if it's interesting. Man, 25 minutes. I mean, I used to write 12-minute, 15-minute ones, so I can't imagine 25. But yeah, I think you're approaching it the right way of just keep writing. Because when I first started on Medium, I think I wrote 50 articles before one actually went viral. And this was back in 2017. And so it's really just through the practice of writing and posting and writing and posting and tweaking and reading other people who are really good writers and being like, okay, how are they thinking, or how are they wording things that works really well? What stands out to me? And so I did that for quite a bit. And then eventually it just becomes second nature. Like it's almost just like a skill or a muscle. And once you get it, you don't know how to unhave it, if that makes sense. And granted, not saying that it's like I still have to improve and get better every day, but yeah, the like automation of just creating and knowing how to structure it, it'll come with time.
I see. Okay. So I would say that just reading or learning from other newsletter writers, but also throw in consistency, because you want to learn this. So be consistent with every week for years on end. That's the only way that you'll get better at it.
Yeah. And I remember specifically my morning routine article, it still brings in not a ton, but like it still brings in a good amount of subscribers every week. And this was like 7-8 years ago. I remember specifically making it. And what I did was gathered all the research and all the quotes that I found about morning routines, and I plugged it into the document. And it was like a 17-hour labor of love, to the point where I was like, I never want to write an article ever again. But at the time, I didn't know I had ADHD. So I feel like that was why it was so frustrating, because it's not normally that hard for people, but it was hard for me because of how my brain is wired. Right. But I don't know how I muscled through it, but I remember writing it and then editing. And I would just like ask myself, okay, is there a better way to say this? Does this make sense? And I just really drilled down. And then I would look at voice, I would look at grammar. And then I remember looking at other big writers on Medium, and I studied their headlines and their intro, because the intro paragraph and the headline is the most important aspect of anything you write. If you don't if you don't make something appealing to where they click on it, you're done. If you don't have a concise and short and to the point and interesting intro, you're done. And so I remember writing my intro, writing my headline, but then looking at them and being like, why does this work? What's punchy about it? What is it? Blah, blah, blah. And it's not that I like copied their voice, but I'm like, if I was them and I read this, how would my intro sound instead? And I remember just like copying like the format almost, but it was still my own words.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, like it went viral. It's because I really like obsessed over the details and obsessed over that. And I feel like it was after that point that I was like, oh, okay. Like the effort of doing that, it's now like more second nature. And I just kept getting better and better from there. So
that obsession is fine in the beginning because we come from a place where we don't know anything. So anytime you learn something new, it just feels like, oh, I'm being obsessive about this. But then you just learned 100 things, and when you apply them, that's when it becomes second nature. So that obsession in the beginning is actually healthy, if you ask me.
No, it is, because there is something rewarding about seeing progress and getting better at something. And again, this is where I think a lot of people can get stuck, is seeing the value in that, because now we have AI. At the time, I didn't have AI. I had to be my own AI and like really break it apart. But I'm so grateful for that experience because of what it gave me in the end. And at the time, I would have never thought that. I thought, this is like the worst thing ever. I hate this. I never want to do this again. But now I feel like people will miss that learning curve because they have AI. So I always say, be careful with that, because guess what? Yes, AI is amazing and it's going to keep getting better. But right now, at least as I stand, it doesn't write like a good writer does all the time. It's not humanized as much. There are certain errors that happen. But the thing is, because of my training and because of my experience, I do use AI sometimes. Like I write the first draft always. And then I say, hey, like, how can I maybe say this a little better or whatever? But I can tell if it's quality or not because of my experience. Whereas I've seen people send me their articles that you can tell it went through AI, because I'm like, you can't tell that this is not good, if that makes sense. Like they don't have taste, and so they can't tell. So I feel like it's wonderful that you're putting yourself through the fire, because even though right now it's a slog and everyone else is using AI, you are definitely going to come out better in the end, because you're going to have taste. You're going to know what's actually good. You're going to know how to speak to a human. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that still value the human perspective and will want that, and not just some computer's perspective, if that makes sense. And granted, I don't know. I think there's a way to use AI, but still keep your humanity, still learn the actual craft of writing and get better at it. And I think it'll be so satisfying for people if they do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I'm using AI every now and then, but it feels too robotic. So I have to put in my experiences into it, and then figure out, curate it in a way that it feels like, no, this is more me, not what you initially, your first draft was very robotic.
Yes, exactly. And that goes back to, you allowed yourself to just be bad, because you don't know your voice until you just fumble through it, and you need to know your voice. And I do use AI for ideas, or like, that's the thing too, is like with ADHD, it's just a lot harder to do certain things. And I feel like AI lightens the load on like little detail things.
Right.
But guess what? I had a virtual assistant when my copywriting business was doing really well. I would have her edit my newsletters and put it into Kit and then send it and schedule it. And I'm like, so if I had a human edit it for me, what's the difference if AI edits it for me? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of, so that's how I kind of think about it. But I love that, again, it comes down to boundaries. I write the first draft. I let AI help me edit, but then I go through to add my stories to make sure it's human, to make sure it sounds like me. Like basically having this checklist of still making sure it's you, I think is good.
I see. Do you use social media, other Instagram, Facebook, or anything else to promote your newsletter? Maybe if it's a giant article and then you make it into a point form and then put it on other media platforms?
I did for a while. Last year for like 6 months, 8 months, I went hard and like posted every day. And I was posting my Substack articles. I just didn't see the return on it that I was hoping. And it just took so much energy from me that I've stopped, because also I was figuring out what my new business was going to be moving forward. And so I figured being on social media right now doesn't make sense unless I have an end goal. I see. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I want to go back on it, because I was on TikTok posting every day. I was on Instagram, I wasn't posting I was posting every day, because what I posted on TikTok, I would also put on Instagram. It's funny because when people sign up for my newsletter, I have multiple touch points that ask them, what brought you to sign up today? What do you want to hear more about? And then where did you find me from? and it's mostly SEO for me. Like 90% is SEO, and then maybe 1 or 2 it's like TikTok, Instagram.
Oh,
And so I'm
wow.
like, that's all I need to know right now. And again, I'm sure
Yeah.
I could do better on my delivery or whatever, but right now in this time of my life, I'm trying to go radio silent. Like, I haven't been on social media. I haven't been doing anything extra except for just going deep in on my focus of coaching, which I've taken so long to accept that's the direction I want to go in. And so, yeah, social media is not part of that plan right now because it's just too much noise for me and then too much temptation. Like, there are times where I can just go on, post, and then get out. But then there's other times where, oh, Taylor Swift is doing what? What is my friend up to? Oh, I want to see her stories because it's green. That means it's just, and then you just like 2 hours later, you're like,
I know.
oh, oops. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I know.
So yeah, what
Yeah.
about you? Are you doing social media too?
I'm trying to, but I feel like it's too much work. That's why I always wonder, how do people find time to post every day? Like, what are you posting every day about? Even if you write one article a week, how do you convert that into 7 posts or stories on your social media? That's the part I struggle with. But then I end up saying that, oh, maybe that's why social media is not for me then.
Well, I mean, honestly, they probably have teams. So let's be real.
Oh yeah,
Not
absolutely.
Yeah. So that like, don't be too hard on yourself with that because their resources are much different. Yeah. If I hired someone, I'd be on social media every day too.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think too, like for me, when I was doing it, I would just, my effort is in the article. And then I would just, like you said, screenshot and create cards of it. Or I would post on, stories about it. And then like, you just would repurpose one piece of content. But honestly, I feel like everyone or most people are kind of over consumption right now. People are sick of the constant influx of content. Even my friend who's a major influencer was telling me that the game is you post 5 times a week at least, if not 2 to 3 videos a day. Like, she knows someone who has like 3 million followers. She's literally just 3 videos a day, but you can tell the quality of them is kind of just, I'm trying to get the job done and move on from this.
Right.
And so
what's the point of that then?
no, exactly. What is the point? What is the point? And I feel bad for those people who are, I mean, I don't feel bad for her because she's making a ton of money, but it's like you're a slave almost to the algorithm, right? And you're just, that's what you feel you have to do. And what kind of life is that? And so again, it comes back to intentionality, to boundaries, to values, and you can still be successful without social media. I mean, you can go on if you want. If you think that's where your people are, then okay, but you don't have to show up every day. I think actually the more you show up, the less quality it's going to be versus people. There are some people who probably show up 3 times a week and then they're doing really well because everything hits better. You can tell the energy's better. It's more intentional. And I actually myself, I've been sending newsletters 3 times a week, and I think I'm going to start lessening. Oh, it's scary because I just decided this last night, but I thought, you know what? Like, I think
It's
it might
okay.
it might be time to test doing 1 a week or even 1 every other week and just slowing myself down because this is what I'm teaching people. And if I feel like I'm constantly having to produce, then that's also not, valuable. So yeah, it's an interesting time.
I see. Okay. So did I get this correctly? Then that coaching is your main thing and your newsletter is just a funnel now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Now,
That's
I mean, this was
interesting.
very recent. Before it was more just, oh, I want the newsletter to be the business, but I just, it didn't connect well with me. And I actually just like writing and connecting with people. I didn't need to monetize it per se. But behind the scenes, even before coming to this, I actually resisted Coach forever because I guess hate's a strong word. I strongly dislike the coaching culture online, at least from like the late, 2018 to 2020 or whatever. That whole scene of like, we do, events and like loud music and everyone's dancing and like, I'm a coach and these are the 5 things you need to do. Not saying that they're bad people. Like, there's a lot of people they probably help, but that's not me. And it just gives me ick. But the signs were all there. You talked about signs, right? Like, I would get copywriting clients, and often they would ask me if they could hire me to continue coaching them for their business. Because when they would do a website with me, they're like, wow, you're helping me think completely different about my business. And oh my gosh, I don't know what the next step is. Can you help me work through this? So they would actually hire me for months and months and months coaching. But it was kind of just like, oh yeah, I want to help you, but I'm embarrassed to say this is what I'm doing. And then,
Yeah.
my friend who's an influencer, again, she pays me to get on calls with her and strategize and develop her business and think long-term and think branding. Because again, I worked with VaynerMedia, I worked with big brands. Like I get branding, I get storytelling, but then I also know self-development. So it's kind of like all my experiences, even in the music industry, working with creatives, like I get all of that. It's so coming together, it really helps women, especially to know their next step. And so my friend a couple months ago told me, Francesca, we need to have a serious talk. And I'm like, what's happening? And she says, I don't know why you resist being a coach so much, because I truly feel like this is your gift. And so she's like, if you just don't want to do it and you don't find joy from it, fine. But if it's more because of like how coaching sounds or how you think of it, let's get over this, because you need to help so many people. And she feels that way about influencing. She's like, I didn't want to be an influencer because I hate everything about influencer culture. But we both decided, if this is our gift and this is where our strengths lie, let's not let the idea that everyone else has about it stop us from leaning into it. And so I have been trying to figure out what it looks like for me and how I can feel comfortable in it. And so right now I've just been doing one-off clarity calls. They're called clarity calls. So women can, if they're struggling with how to deal with a brand deal, or they're like, you know what, I just sold my business and now I don't know how to build a personal brand or what to think of moving forward. Or I have one client right now who I used to actually manage him in a group back in the day. Now he's a solo artist and he is doing an album drop. And so he's like, I just need you to help me think big picture. Like, what's the strategy? How do we make sure it's the most effective launch? So I'm working with him on that. And so basically people just book one-off calls. It's not like you have to buy a 3-month package or a year-long package. It's just like, this is happening in real time. I need my, person with me to help me figure this out. And so yeah, that's kind of what I leaned into. And so the newsletter is going to pivot now to still adding value, to still teaching the things that I'm really passionate about. Okay. And then, speaking more to people who need that extra help. Because at the end of the day, I realized that my biggest goal in life is I want to change, one, how we view productivity and how it's practiced in the world. And two, I want more women to have power. Because I just am so tired of a certain kind of person having the ability to make decisions for my life and for other women's quality of life. And I was like, you know what? If I can help women make as much money as possible and start getting seats at the table more, that would make me so happy. So really, that's like at the bottom of everything that I'm doing now, is like, I just want to see other women win. And I'm like determined to make that happen.
I see. So that's where the good space is eventually going to end up at.
Yes. Well, I don't know about end up at, but
I mean, right now, sorry. Yes, that's where it's going.
Yeah.
That's where it's evolving right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's always, I felt like talk to women, but I've actually never been this specific. So it feels very empowering to know clearly who I'm helping. And so it's ambitious women who are creators, writers, entrepreneurs, business women, just in general, who they just want to make more money or impact the world. And so yeah, I feel like the content will still have the same energy and same flow. Okay. It'll just be like maybe a more specific topic or a more specific like approach to it, which I'm excited about, because
that's nice.
It's been too long that I haven't been specific, if that makes sense. And I was kind of feeling down about what I was doing. And so now I'm like, great, I know my purpose.
That's what it's all about, right? That you niche down as much as you can. And sometimes it takes 1 year, sometimes it takes 7 years, sometimes it takes like 1 month. So it's been 5 years for me. If you ask me, I don't have a niche. So it's nice to know that if you just consistently put in the work, eventually the niche will present itself in different forms, because you just listen to your profile. You have so many different things going on in your last 10 years life of music industry, and then working for VaynerMedia, and then copywriting, and now newsletter that turned into coaching. That would not ever happen in a 1 year mark. That has to take its time, right?
Absolutely. And I will say too, that where I'm at now and the clarity I feel and the purpose I feel and just the alignment, the energy that is around it has been so concise and clear. And it's because I focused on my nervous system regulation. The
That's good to
minute
know.
I did that 30-day experiment, that's when this all came about. And it just became super clear. And I was like, wow, it's because I slowed down and I focused on my energy, and then boom, I'm on the path now. So I think if you can learn anything from this, it's regulate your nervous system and trust that the power that comes from that energy of having that regulation is way more powerful than the world's energy and power of always producing. And again, if you're always producing, if you're always trying to achieve, you're doing it for someone else. You're not doing it for you. So
This was a very, very deep conversation that I wasn't ready for. So thank you very much for this, Francesca.
glad.
I'm taking away this one thing that you just mentioned, that I'm going to start a log of what my nervous regulation looks like, how it is dysregulated, and then we'll see how I can fix it. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Yes, and thank you for having me on. It was really fun to go through all the things, and I'm excited to see where your stuff goes and what you decide on, and you'll have to keep me updated. I would love to.
Absolutely.
To know.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much for this.
Thanks.
Take care.